Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Today's topic is about how to avoid infinite do loops in SAS. Before going into the main topic, we need to look into few things. The first one is what is a loop and why do we need a loop? In here, let's look into an example to understand this better. I have initial amount of 10 rupees or $10. Each time I want to add 2.25 and then do an output. I want to do this for 10 times. Means I take 10 and then add 2.25 output, then again whatever total I have, I want to do it again, again and again. So one way of doing that is to write amount, that is the variable name here I am saying AMT, plus 2.25 and then output, and then again doing the same thing. If it is a 20 times, I need to do it 20 times. So here you see a repeated thing going on and on and on. And then once it does repeated over and over again, if I ask you to write it for 100 times, it becomes tedious. This is something which is not practically possible. Now what I have shown you here can be done simply by using a iterative do loop. Here, if you see in example here, I have given my initial amount equal to 10. And then let's look into our do loop. Do loop here starts with do, and then I have index variable I equal to 1 to 10. 1 is our start, 10 is our end, and actually we increment by 1. 1 is a default, so we need not show that we are incrementing by 1, but whenever we write 1 to 10 or any number, it means we are having a starting point and we are going to an end point and we are incrementing by 1. The increment need not be by 1, it can be by 2 or it can be by any other number. But the important point here to remember is whenever we write by 1 or we don't write by 1, it is one and the same. Now here the do loop has the body of the code which we have shown you here. This could be anything. So every do loop has an end statement. Here, important thing to remember how this whole thing works. Here I said there is an index variable. Actually, index variable has no connection or no meaning to this particular code. This index variable is just to track that we are starting from a one point and we are going to another point. Here, I want the code to run 10 times, so I wrote it as 1 to 10. And how the whole thing works is in the beginning of our do loop, the value of I will be 1, and then it loops through this, and then it increments by 1 here, and then it runs again. In the same fashion, it runs 10 times. Then it increments by 1. Now the value has reached 11, so it no longer gets into this loop, and with the help of this end statement, this do loop ends. So this is how your index variable is helpful to us. No link to the whole code as such, but it is just to track how many times we want to loop. Now the start point can be 10 to 20 and it's going to again loop 10 times only. So the start and end are more arbitrary. It is just how many times we want to loop. Now let us go back to our initial numbers, that is 1 and 10. And then here I have a sum statement. If you do not know how sum statement works, I have made a detailed video on this topic and I will give the link for the same in the description below. And please have a look into it. Here, what sum statement does is sum statement takes the value here and then it adds 2.25, and then it accumulates that value and then again adds 2.25. And this output statement in here outputs the value for each iteration in here. Now let us quickly run this code and try to understand our results. Now here you can see that I have my index variable. When it was 1, the value was 12.25, and then again it added 2.25, and then again to this value there was 2.25 added. In the same fashion it was added 10 times. That is what is our do loop doing in here. That is, it is looping 10 times. Now this is a very generic way of do loop. I will show you other kinds also, but our main topic is how and when we go into infinite loop. In an infinite loop means that loop never ends. When that could happen? Generally, in this kind of iterative do loop, it rarely happens because we have a start point and we have a end point. But it could happen. How it could happen? It could happen if you change the value of index variable somewhere in your loop. For example, here I am making in the same do loop, I am saying I equal to 2. This will run forever. Why it will run forever? Because when I equal to 1, this code will come into loop. Immediately we are making it into 2. Then this piece of code runs and then it goes into the loop. Now the value of I is 2 and it increments by 1. It becomes 3, and then it again comes to the 2 because we are resetting the index variable value of 2. So every time it runs and then it goes into 3, then it comes back to 2. So we are not going to an endpoint. Unless we don't get to endpoint, this end statement will not work. So this kind of thing will take us to infinite loop. Now let us quickly run this and see what will happen. Now once I run this, it keeps on telling me running, and it will use all the resources of my computer and it keeps on running. Now I do not want to run it forever. That's why I cancel this. And then once it is cancelled, I want to show you how you can avoid this kind of issues. So you have to remember, when you are working in the real time, you cannot allow this kind of things to happen. You have to be very careful when you use do loops. Now always remember, you can give a condition and then you can tell to come out of the loop. Now I have written an additional statement wherein I have said if amount is greater than 30, then leave. Means just get out of the loop. I have made a video on leave and continue, and I will give the link for the same in the description below. Have a look. But to simply say that whenever the amount greater than 30, then just get out of the loop. So what happens is the loop starts and it keeps on adding and it keeps on checking this value. Once all the values have been added and then we reach somewhere greater than 30, it will not go back again into the loop. It simply leaves or gets out of the loop. And now let us quickly run our code and see our results. In the results you can see that our I has been always 2 because we have been resetting it to 2, and then our last observation is 30.25. That is when our loop exited out because of leave statement. Not only this, we can do something different too. I can write if amount is greater than 30, then I equal to 10. So again it gets into the loop and we keep on adding the value over and over and over again. Once the amount is greater than 30, we are saying I to become 10. So we have been capturing all the values in here, and once the amount reached greater than 30, we have set the value I equal to 10. What it tries to do is it wants to get back into the loop because now I equal to 10 and it tries to increment by 1, and as the value is 11, it never comes back into the loop and it ends the loop by the end statement in here. Now let us quickly run this code and see our results. Our results are pretty similar to what we have seen because now our I is always 2 because we have reset it to 2, and once it reached greater than 30, at the bottom of our loop we set to become I equal to 10, and then it never came back into the loop. It exits because we increment by 1 and it becomes 11 and it never enters the loop. Generally, in the case of iterative do loop where we have a starting point and ending point, they rarely go into infinite loop because we almost never reset our index variable value. But infinite loops can be more common where we use looping based off condition. And now let's get into an example and try to understand this better. One of this kind of looping is known as do until. Here again I have very similar code, but if you look into here I have a do statement which is very different than what I have shown you earlier. Earlier we had an index variable and it has a starting point and ending point, and then we have an end statement. But here we are saying do until amount is greater than 30. So in this do loop, in this do until to be precise, we are giving a condition in parenthesis. If this value is reached, then it will end. Again, this code is pretty similar with what we have seen before. So how does this work? Here the amount is 10. So here it enters into the loop and it becomes 12.25, and it looks into this condition. Is 12.25 greater than 30? No. It enters again into the loop again and again and again till it is greater than 30. Once it is greater than 30, this end statement kicks in and we are out of the loop. Now let us quickly run this piece of code and see our result. So you can see that we have exited our loop once it has reached greater than 30. Couple of important points I would like to reiterate here. First one is we have an output statement here also. Whenever it gets into the loop, it does the sum statement and then it also outputs each row what it sums up here. And the second one is do until works till the condition becomes true. Means it keeps on looping till the condition becomes true. And here comes the important point. Say you have given a condition which is never true. You are saying here amount equal to 30. Then we are in trouble. Now let us look into our output data. If you see the amount is 30.25, not precisely 30. So it never reaches the value of 30, and as I've explained, do until is one which runs till the condition becomes true. The condition never becomes true because it never gets to 30. It keeps on running over and over and over and over and over again. Now let us quickly try to run this. So in the do until, if you give a condition which never becomes true, the code goes on running and running and running because it wants the condition to become true. Now I'm canceling this. So here the infinite loop happens. So we have to be careful. So one way we can address this is by giving any other condition from where we can exit out of the loop. Here what I have done is I have tried to create a new variable val, and then I'm adding 1 in every iteration. And just to repeat once again, or to tell about some statement, whenever we don't mention any value for some statement variable, it starts with 0. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding 1 per every iteration, and then once it reaches to the 10, this condition will kick in, from where it can exit the loop, because we are saying that if val is greater than or equal to 10, then leave. So we need to be smart whenever we try to give a condition in do until. We want to kind of give a safety net kind of thing, and then give a separate condition from where it can have exit. Now let us quickly run this and see our results. Here in the results you can see that the final observation value in the val is 10. That is where we have told to exit out of the loop. So in this loop what was happening was, it was adding 1 for every value for val, and then it was adding 2.25 for amount. As this condition was never getting met, it checks the condition, and also we have given an if statement here. If the if statement becomes true, it leaves out of the loop or it gets out of the loop. So this is one important point. Now we can also talk about do while. Do while is also a looping with condition, but here the condition is quite opposite of do until. Do while loops while the condition is true, and it ends only once condition is false. Now let us try to understand with the data step below. Again, everything else is same other than our do while statement in here. In here again, like do until, I have a condition, and in this condition I am saying amount is less than 30. As 10 is less than 30, it gets into the loop and it outputs, and then it again gets into the loop. It runs and runs because the condition is true. Once it reaches the value greater than 30, the condition is no longer true. Then this loop ends with the end statement. Now let me quickly run this and see our results. Here again, the results are pretty much similar than what you have seen in do until, but what you want to understand is do while is different, wherein it runs while condition is true. If we give a condition such that if it is always true, then it will go into infinite loop. Now let's look into an example. In here again I have amount equal to 10, but what I am saying is in condition is amount greater than 5, then do this do while thing in here. Here when I'm starting with 10, 10 is obviously greater than 5. So it becomes 12.25 in first iteration, it is greater. So how much ever I add to 10, it is always greater. So whenever I do this kind of looping, it goes into infinite loops. Now let us quickly run this and see what is happening. In here you can see that it is running, but let me cancel this. Now I get the message that this program is no longer working and the cancel is not responding. So it is telling me to terminate the SAS session, and I'm terminating my SAS session, and Here the important point to remember is always give a condition which will become false at some point of time. I have pasted the above code in here. To avoid infinite do loop, what I am doing is what I have shown you already in do until. That is, I am creating a new variable val, and here what we are doing is val plus 1, and if val is greater than equal to 10, then we are telling to exit out of the loop. So again, even though this condition is always true because 10 is greater than 5 and whatever you add to it is always greater than 5, the condition is true forever. But what we have done is we have used a logic of if statement, and then we have used other condition to exit out of the loop. So whenever you use do until or do while, always think through whether the conditions are what we really want to do. Is it going to go into infinite loop? Now that I have shown you how to get out of do until, do while, and also iterative do loop, now let us look into something different. We can combine iterative do loop and also loop based out of condition so that we do not go into infinite loop. But let me quickly explain what does this mean and how does it look. Here I have a do loop, but in here I'm having iterative do loop wherein I am saying I equal to 1 to 10, and also I am saying until amount is 50. So because I have combined both of them, this end will kick in whenever the first one which gets into completion, that will take the precedence. If I say 1 to 10 and then here the amount I have is greater than 20, then what will happen is once the amount reaches greater than 20, it ends the loop instead of doing the 10 iterations. Now let us quickly run this. Here you can see that we have our value of greater than 20 at fifth iteration itself. Because this condition was met first, this has come out of the loop. And now if I say amount is greater than 100, then what will happen is this 1 to 10 completes first and then it ends the loop. So it will not go until the amount is greater than 100. Now let us quickly run this and see our result. So here you can see in our result the amount is 32.5 and our index variable value is 10. So the important point to remember here is whatever reaches first, whether your iterative loop or your condition reaches first, then one of them will end the loop. So priority is whatever comes first. And now let us try to understand this in the context of infinite loop. Say if I have given the value of amount equal to 20. As you have seen in our results, we don't have 20 anywhere in here. So the do until amount equal to 20 will never reach. So what will happen is it can go into infinite loop, and I have shown you the examples before of this kind of scenario. Now as we have given a condition which can be never be true until we'll keep on working. But what we have also done is we have combined it with an iterative loop, and we have our index variable value defined between 1 to 10. So once it reaches 10, it ends the loop. Now let us quickly run this. Here you can see that when I was 10, amount was 32.5 and it ended the loop. Important point to remember is we have used this iterative loop so that we do not go into infinite loop. Now I have shown you another example wherein I have reset the value of our index variable, that is I equal to 2. If we reset our index variable value, we can go into infinite loop. But here we have a condition which will be true at some point. So it does not go infinite loop because of this iterative do loop. So let us quickly run this and see our results. In our result, you can see that our index variable value was always 2, but once the amount was greater than 35, we have come out of our loop or the loop has ended. So it is very important to understand that by combining iterative and also our conditional based loop, we can avoid infinite loops. That's all for this topic. If you like this topic, please give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe. Thank you.